In this lesson, we'll be discussing destinations. Destinations are used to load data from the source that we discussed earlier in Lesson 14. So in Lesson 14, it was all about sources. If you think about that, we extracted data from our source, and we're going to load data into a target location, which is our destination. So some of the most commonly used destinations that we'll cover in this lesson are the OLEDB destination, the flat file destination, and the Excel destination. Within the OLEDB destination, we have a couple neat options that we're going to discuss in a little bit deeper, which is the fast load option, the table lock option, and then a whole separate destination called the SQL Server destination. Alright, so in this lesson we're going to be dealing with destinations, and we're going to actually build off the package that we created in Lesson 14. So right now I have Lesson 14's package open, and if we want to build off that, what we can do is either, if you're just starting with Lesson 15, you can download it from rocks.com, or you can simply right-click and say you want to copy this package and paste it into the SSIS packages. And I'll just name it Lesson 1. All you have to do is simply rename it to Lesson 15. Lesson 15 is on destinations. It'll pop up this, do you want to rename the object as well? Always say yes to this. Alright, once it renames it, you'll see we now have Lesson 15 open. I'm going to go ahead and close Lesson 14 and save it. Alright, so we're ready to begin. And we're going to start by doing an OLEDB source, and we're going to do it from our flat file source. So I'm going to go into our data flow task for the flat file source by double clicking. And the first thing I'm going to do is kill the union all that we have here. Remember, if you did do Lesson 14, we simply used the union all as a temporary destination. But now we're going to load our flat file source into a real destination, so we can go ahead and delete that by hitting the delete key and confirm yes, you do want to delete it. Alright, so now we're ready to go ahead and bring over our OLEDB destination and our toolbox, and on the very bottom you'll see the different destinations you can do, and we're going to be doing the OLEDB destination. So drag that over and connect the green arrow to the OLEDB destination. Then we'll want to go ahead and do some cleanup work. So we'll rename our destination employee list and just give it some kind of significant name. Because if we remember from Lesson 4, this is just a quick list of 3 employees and some data in it involving sick days and vacation days. So now that you have it renamed, let's go ahead and dig into the destination by double clicking, and that'll open your editor. You'll see that it realized because you only have one OLEDB connection manager, it automatically assigned the AdventureWorks 2008 one that you already have created to it, which is actually what we want, so we'll leave that. But what we do want to change is what columns or what table we're inserting into. Now you'll see you can either select from this drop-down list here, but in our case we're going to create a new table. So go ahead and select New to the right of it, and it will automatically generate this script for you. And it just so happens, because we changed the name of our task to employee list, it also changed the name of the table to employee list. And that's actually exactly what we want. However, if you look at some of the data types that it created, it has employee ID as a varchar, sick days as a varchar, and as well as vacation days. But we want those to be ENTs. So let's go ahead and change them to ENTs. I already have the script copied over, so I'm just going to paste that in. And you'll see I simply changed the data types to ENTs. That's the only difference I did here. So whenever you have that, go ahead and click OK. And then immediately, as soon as you hit OK there, creates a table in your AdventureWorks 2008 database. So you can create tables within SSIS simply by doing the New button here. Now a couple other features here we have: the data access mode. We're going to use the fast load option, and I would suggest you always use the fast load option for performance reasons. You also have just the regular table in view. The only difference is the rate at which it loads. You'll always want to do fast load when it's possible. You also have table lock, What the table lock does is anytime that you're inserting rows into this table, it's going to lock other users out trying to access this table, which is another performance increase. Alright, so now we're ready to go ahead and check out our mapping. If you look into the mapping, you'll see because we happen to have the same names of columns from our source to our destination, it automatically connected our mapping. But if we had different names, you'd often see that some of these arrows weren't connected. To connect them, you have two options. You can either just click and drag it to the correct column, or on the bottom area here, you have where it says input columns and destination columns. Right now it's ignoring this one, but we want to change that to employee ID. So just do the drop down box to employee ID. And that's simple it is for the mapping. And we're actually have all of the settings that we want for this correctly done right now. Well, let's talk about a couple of the other settings that we have on the beginning page here. Alright, so a couple of the other options we have is the rows per batch. And what the rows per batch is it allows you to specify how many rows are in each batch sent to the destination. These are some of the options that you can do here. Will depend on what kind of data you're moving, how many columns you have in the table you're trying to load. These are some things that you'll tinker with, and as you go you'll make changes. The next option we have is maximum insert commit size, and what this does is it sets how large the batch size is going into prior to sending a commit statement. So usually you'll set the maximum insert commit size to a number like 10,000 just to increase performance. But it really depends on, like I said, the width of the columns that you're trying to insert into. So we have all the settings that we're ready for here. Go ahead and click OK, and you should see our red X disappear. And let's go ahead and execute just this data flow task. So go ahead to the control flow. And to execute this, you're going to right click on the data flow task again, like we did in the first lesson, and say execute task. And this will just execute this one task we have here instead of all three. Alright, you saw it went from transparent to yellow to green, which means we have success. Oops. Go ahead to the data flow tab. What you'll see there is I hit the progress tab. This shows you any warnings or errors you may have. I didn't have any errors. I had one warning here. So let's go ahead back to the data flow. And you'll see it loaded my 3 rows from my flat file to my SQL Server table, in this case using the OLADB destination, and it loaded the 3 rows. Now I mentioned in the slide about using a SQL Server destination. I'll just briefly talk about that. If you look on the bottom, you do have a SQL Server destination at the very bottom. And the times that you would use a SQL Server destination, it does help in performance, but you can only use a SQL Server destination when you are running the package on the SQL Server that you're loading to. So if think about your work situation. If you are loading, or if you're running the package on the same server as where the data is being loaded to, then you can use the SQL Server destination, and you will see a performance increase. Any other circumstance, and that destination will not work. So just keep that in mind. If you are trying to get a little bit of extra performance out, that's the caveat to that one. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Let's go back to our control flow. Okay, so to our next destination we're going to do, we're going to go into our Excel source data flow, and in this one we're going to do the flat file destination. So go ahead and remove your union all, just like we did in the first one, by just deleting, and then hit yes. You really do want to delete it. And from your toolbox on the bottom, go ahead and bring over your flat file destination and connect that to your Excel source. And then let's go ahead and rename this Excel extract. Just again, to give it, usually you want to give it some kind of significant name. So Excel extract on this one. Alright, and once you have that, go ahead and dig into your flat file destination, and you'll see that it's automatically already looking at the flat file connection manager, which we have was flat file extract. And this isn't actually what we want this time. If you remember from lesson 14, the flat file extract is actually our source, but we're going to have to go ahead and create a new one. So hit New, and we want a delimited flat file, so go ahead and hit OK to continue. And it'll take a moment here, and then it'll bring up the flat file connection manager editor. So let's name this connection manager inventory flat file, and we'll give it that name right up here. And then we'll select a file location for where this is going to be loaded to. So right now this flat file isn't created yet, but once we execute the package, it will create the flat file and load it. So we're going to hit Browse. And I don't have what I'm looking for in here, a location yet, so let's go ahead and create a new one called Inventory. And it's going to be a text file. And you should be saving your files all to the same location: C projects, SSIS, personal trainer, and then whatever the file name is. Now what I do want to do, if we talked about this, as you'll notice, this is exactly the same as we had when we had a flat file source, because this is a connection manager. But this time, instead of taking data from it, we're going to load data into it. So I do want, again, to check that the column name is in the first row, so that whenever we create this flat file, it will present a column to it. And if you want to look at the columns that are going to be loaded, you can see them here. And you'll notice there's no data in here yet, and that's because we haven't run the package yet. So go ahead and click OK, and that's going to confirm that our flat file connection manager has been created. And now we're back, and after I clicked OK, we're back into the flat file destination editor. So remember, we have to create that connection manager, and then we can work with the destination. Now in this case, we're going to keep this checked. This is checked by default. It says overwrite data in the file. This means as many times over and over as this flat file is loaded, it'll delete whatever is in it and reload it with whatever is new from this package. So if you already have this flat file created and you run this package again with new data, it's going to erase what you already have and then load it with the new stuff. And again, just like the source, you can preview it to see what's coming in, even though we don't have any data yet. Remember, we haven't executed it yet. And then you can also check out the mappings just to confirm that the mappings is in the right direction. You'll always want to check out the mappings just to confirm that the rows that you think are going into a certain place are going that place. And generally, if the input rows, or I'm sorry, I keep saying rows, if the input columns and the destination columns are named the same, SSIS will automatically map them for you. So everything looks good here. As you'll see, there's not too many options for the flat file destination, so we're set here. So go ahead and click OK, and then we'll go into our control flow because we're ready to execute this. And remember, how to execute just a single task is to right-click on it and say Execute Task, and then you'll see it go from yellow to green. And then we can check out what happened, how many rows were moved in the data flow. And we moved 2,138 rows from our Excel source to our flat file destination. So that's how you work with the flat file destination. Our last option, or our last destination we're going to work with here is going to be the Excel destination. So let's stop the package and return to the control flow. So now we're ready to do our Excel destination, and we're going to do that inside of our data flow task devoted to the OLDB source. So go ahead and double click to enter the data flow task. And again, like the first two, delete your union all and confirm you do want to delete it. Alright, so now we're ready to do our Excel destination by grabbing it from the toolbox and from the destinations on the bottom. We're going to drag over the Excel destination. and then connect them with the green arrow. And again, let's name the destination something significant to us. This time we'll name it transaction history. I already had it copied over. Just go ahead and type transaction history as the destination name. And then open up the Excel destination editor by double clicking on the destination. And this time we're going to create within the connection manager we already have for the inventory Excel spreadsheet. We're going to create a new sheet. So we have this Excel file already with several Excel sheets within it. We're going to create a new sheet from SSIS. You can actually do. So click New. Next to, if you wanted, you could select the name that you want to work with. Remember when we did the sources, we used the inventory worksheet. But this time we're going to create a new one. So go ahead and click New. Right, and from here we're going to leave everything the default. Just go ahead and click OK once you take a look at this. Sometimes Excel is a little bit picky with the names, and we have a space here. So we'll get an error, or not necessarily an error, but a warning right after we click OK telling us that it's going to insert an underscore here. So you'll see that it's going to, any white space in the Excel sheet name may be replaced with an underscore, which is exactly what it's going to do here. So if you click OK, you'll see from the drop-down list that it named our transaction space history to transaction underscore history. That's fine by us. Go ahead and select that as the sheet that we're going to load. And just like we did with the other destinations, check out your mapping. Always check out your mappings just to confirm that each of the columns are going to load correctly. Again, you want to make sure that you don't see any of them missing, or you don't see any of them matched with the wrong columns. Now, so far all of the destinations we've seen the arrows have gone directly across, but let's say it is possible that in this circumstance, this isn't correct. We would have quantity to quantity, but if the order from our input columns to our destination columns were mixed up, you could typically you would see the arrows mixed up like this. So that's not unusual. But for this circumstance, they're going to go straight across. Remember, you could either do the grab the quantity and drag it over, or you can go to the drop-down box in the bottom and select the column that you want. Alright, so we have everything we want here. Again, there's not too many options for this one, so go ahead and click OK. You will notice that you do have the preview option as we did before. Go ahead and click OK. And we're ready to try out this data flow task now. So let's return to the control flow and execute just exclusively this task. And you'll see it'll go from yellow to green. And we can go back into our data flow task to see how many rows were moved. We moved from our SQL Server source, or the OLEDB source, 38,521 rows into an Excel file. And if you wanted to, you could actually open up that Excel file and take a look. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's take a look at the Excel file we created. This file didn't exist before. We created it on the fly inside of SSIS, and you can see exactly what it loaded here. This is the transaction underscore history sheet. And that gives you a good idea of what exactly it's going to do. It's going to tell SSIS to put all these in different columns, or SSIS tells Excel to put all these into different columns, and then loads the data straight from your OLEDB source into the Excel file. So that's dealing with the most common destinations. Let's go ahead and wrap it up here. So what did we learn in this lesson? We learned exactly what a destination is. It takes source data and loads it into a target location, which you'll specify as either some of the three common ones that we used. There's many more options than this, but we use the OLEDB destination, the flat file destination, and the Excel destination. Again, I showed you these because these are the most commonly used ones and you'll use most often. We also talked about some special, not necessarily tricks, but performance tips, such as using fast load, table lock, and the optional SQL Server destination if we are executing our package on the same server as where we're loading the data into. So keep that in mind, And these are some great tips that you can use whenever you're creating your own packages.